get people watching in. We don't know where they're from, but it's like a what do you call it? Just a
reality TV.
Yeah, reality TV. Yeah, so it's pretty cool. Okay.
I watched them on YouTube.
Yeah, you watched them all on YouTube. That was best, eh?
Yeah.
And you probably shouldn't do them in one sitting. That's probably a tough way of doing them. Okay. All right. I want to talk about proof of concept. This is we talked about business models. We've got a business model example. Business model is part of that very high helicopter view. The next thing we want to do, once you've sort of worked through a business model, basically the other day when you developed that business model, you could have taken so many different permutations. You know, so many different channels, so many different customer segments, so many different value propositions, so many different partners, so many different cost structures you could have set up. There's so many permutations in a business model, and you guys chose one. That's what we did. We sat down and we chose one. But that's not the end of it. So you chose one from many thousands that you could have got. But you've got your model, but we're not done yet. And that's what the proof of concept is about. Because really all you did was come up with a whole lot of guesses. You didn't come up with a plan. You didn't come up with a business model. You just came up with a whole lot of guesses. And really, we don't know whether any of those things you've sat down and planned could possibly work. You know, and that's the point that we get to with this proof of concept. Okay, we've got this model. We've developed it a bit, and we haven't developed that model a lot yet, but you've developed it to a point. Now you've got to go and prove it. And I was talking about this about a client, a customer that came back, student that came back from last year, and they got this idea and developed it. And they actually asked me, where do I go now? And I just said, well, this is it. You've got to go to a proof of concept. So what we need to do is go to this proof of concept, which actually at the end of the day is more important. A proof of concept is more important or equally important to the product that you've developed. You've got this idea, you've developed it, this product, you're really into it, but the proof of concept is equally important for a couple of reasons. One, it's really important for you. You're about to go from that minimal, affordable loss world to a very high commitment world. Because when I tell you that you're going to go into business, I'm going to tell you have to commit 100%, and that's put every bit of resources you can on the line. Now, I don't want you to go there. No one should go there until you've actually sure to yourself that this idea has got a high probability of success. And that's why you spend your money on the proof of concept, which is still at that affordable loss area. So it's a really important area, and if you're going to go and get funds from someone, don't even bother to go near them until you prove the concept. Venture capitalists, people like that, as soon as you go and see them, any sort of funder, they're, apart from a bank which is just going to ask for security, but someone who's going to invest in your equity, a partner or a venture capitalist or someone like that, the first thing they're going to say is, so how many customers have you got? And how are they growing? How much are they growing? You say, well, I haven't grown them yet. I'm still doing the product development. And they basically say, well, go back, and when you've got yourself some customers and those customers are growing at a fast rate, come back and see us. So in other words, they want to have a proof of concept going before they even touch you. So it's a really, really important part, and a lot of us, when we develop our budgets, we don't think about, hey, we need to keep some marketing back in our early budgeting to actually prove this concept, because you need to be able to do it. So how do we prove the concept? How do we turn these guesses into truth, or guesses into a proven idea? Is that we need to go and talk to customers, and that's what this customer development process, or this proof of concept about, is taking this idea to customers and see what they think. That's what we have to do. So we've got to figure out this primary target market. Now, the primary target market, I've told you this already, that remember all those 10,000 decisions that you've got to make. If you really get your target market right, if you really figure that one out, you know, of all the things you've got to make a decision about, I reckon it's the top hook. If you've picked the right market, you know, and the right market can be right for a lot of things, that it's got enough volume, that you're solving their problem, that they're the people with the glass of water in the desert people. You know, if you've picked that right, then once you've made that decision and it's the right decision, most other things will fall into place. The rest of the decisions you've got to make aren't as hard once you've decided that. So you need to spend a bit of time here. Of all the areas you need to spend time on, is say the who. Who are we providing value for? Who is it? Who is it? And the more accurately you can define that person, you'll find choosing colours, fonts on websites, locations, product mix, prices, whatever you name, is going to be much easier once you have that determined customer. So the good old Americans have gone along and they've developed, and I'll put this up on, it's a PDF, I'll put this up on the site, but they've broken up to about 66 different segments, I think it's got up to. And they've actually looked at the whole of our society and they say there's about 66 segments. Now, I'm not saying we particularly take one of those, but it would be really good reading for you. Some of you that can't sort of profile a customer, have a look through there and say, oh, actually, that's my customer. Number 46, what the Americans have determined, that's really the target customer I want. And they will describe things like the lifestyle, their behavioural characteristics, their income, their education, and so forth. So it's a really good, I find it's a really good thing to actually really narrow in. And remember, the tighter you can get with your target customer, the easier it is for the rest of the development of your product. And again, when you're picking someone, don't just pick someone who might be interested in your product. Pick this guy. That's the guy you want to be serving. You want to be served. So you might have a choice between 3 or 4 primary targets that would all like to have their mobile phones programmed, you know. But maybe the person that needs it the most is someone that is an older person, that's a digital immigrant, they call them, who needs it desperately for some reason. They're going to pay a lot of money and to get someone to come and quickly do something. You give it to my daughter and say, you know, I'm going to program your phone for you, help you set it all up, and it's going to cost you $10. What? I do that myself. So you've got to be careful that when you pick a segment, and this is when you pick the right segment, you pick that segment. You pick a segment who your value is valued by that person, like someone who is starving or out of water in the desert could find you. So think about that when you're picking your primary segment. And maybe do a customer storyboard on them. You know, they do this a lot in marketing, but I kind of like it. You know, I kind of like the idea of get some magazines, start flipping through them, and start ripping out some pages and say, that's it. And here they are here. Here they are at the beach. This is what my target customer does for leisure. This is what my target customer does for internet. And these are the sites that they visit, you know. Like, if you can build this storyboard about the particular target customer you're going, the reason we do this is because, honestly, being the hook, everything else hangs off it. And what you're going to do in this proof of concept phase is you're going to find your niche. And the niche you're going to find is probably not the niche that you will ultimately end at. We will all end up in some sort of niche. Not many people here are going to get into the mass market, I don't think. Most of us will end up in some sort of niche. But your initial niche, remember that Horizon 1 niche. That Horizon 1 niche might be a niche within a niche. So you'll actually probably later on, once you get to Horizon 3, cater to a much bigger group. But what we need to do is find that initial niche. Where is the initial part that people are going to spend money with us and build a profitable business? So this whole thing is called the customer development process. And it's a process that deals with search and execution. So the first part of it is a search process, and the second part is execution. Remember the old system that we had when we first did entrepreneurship, which we copied the business plan from the corporate world, and we created a whole business plan, and we never talked to a customer, basically. We just sat at home and wrote our business plan. Well, that's not how we do it. We actually, these days, in entrepreneurial planning, we come up with a concept, we discuss the concept, we have it out with another experienced entrepreneur to have a look at your business model and try and tweak it where it could be good, and then you go out and test it. You say, these are a set of hypotheses or guesses, let's go out and test each one of those things to see if they work. So we're going from a search phase into an execution phase, and it basically goes through 4 phases. We've got to discover something, we've got to discover things, then we've got to validate them. Once we've validated them, we start to create them until eventually we build a business out of it. And we go through these processes. Where we are is way back here in setting the vision. I think some of you, you know, we talked about the founder's vision a couple of weeks back. We've been talking about building a business model, which we're talking about, or building now. Creating existence. Creating an ABN creates existence. Mm-hmm. You get that printed out and put it up on your wall, your brain starts to think you're serious about this whole thing now, you know? Like even if it's creating an ABN for yourself, you're actually saying, hey, I'm becoming an entrepreneur. And you'll be surprised how your brain switches on. You know, I often say this with cyclists, because I don't see cyclists as a threat. Sorry, you cyclists. I don't see them as a threat because if they hit me, they damage my paint. A truck I see as a threat. And so somehow my brain picks up trucks far easier than it picks up cyclists, because I'm not factored in for it. And what I'm saying about the creating existence, while you try and create existence, in other words, register an ABN, print that out, put it up on the wall, put it in a frame if you like, is your brain starts to get serious about this choice you're making. A lot of you are making choices from corporate world to entrepreneurial world. Once you start to do that, your brain will actually start to make it real for you. So creating existence is very important. And then the validation, which we're into at the moment, testing, trying to find a repeatable, repeating customer base. That's really important, that we find a customer that's going to come back and who's going to refer your business. Scalability, in other words, as the business grows, the gap between costs and revenue separates. Unfortunately, some of the business models of things like accounting firms and Darcy's business model, sometimes to earn more money, basically you just got to put in more work. We've got to sometimes try and find something in our assortment that gets some scale, that gets some gap between earning money and costs. And then we've got to build a minimum viable product. A lot of us think we've got to build the perfect product before we launch. That's actually not true. You build a minimum product to test in this proof of concept phase, because you don't know what your customers really want. You haven't really spoken to them yet. You probably haven't spoken to 50 customers about your idea yet. You know, maybe you've spoken to a couple, that's about all. Well, we need to get to about 50 before we even get close to feeling that we've got some sort of idea. Then what happens in this validation, we're going to find we got it wrong. We're going to find we got maybe even the target customer wrong, or the partnership wrong, or the delivery channel wrong, or the costings or the revenues wrong. So we have to pivot. Pivot means we change our idea completely. Instead of targeting 18-year-olds, we target 92-year-olds. That's a pivot. An iteration is where you sort of say, well, look, we are going to target older working people, but we'll probably target the 50 to 55s. You know, a iteration is where you slightly change. You know, it's only a degrees thing. But some of the things you will do will be complete pivots. You will actually completely change the way you do it. We were going to make SkillMaker our launch vehicle. We eventually recognised that we need to go with Industry Professor as our launch company, and so that's the one that we've been developing. So that's a bit of a pivot in our plans, that we went with a completely different vehicle to launch our whole idea. So this overarching goal, I can hardly read it there, but it's to turn a set of founding guesses into a money-making venture, and to discover the repeatable, scalable, and ultimately profitable business before running out of cash. And that's the thing we've got to be doing, because most of us are going to have limited cash to make this happen. So we need, you know, that bullet the gate. We're going to get put in a paddock, and we've got to make that gate, which is basically break even before we get eaten alive or we lose our money. This guy is pretty much the master of a lot of this sort of stuff that I'm talking about. He started the lean startup movement, and he's really worth following. He has a manual, which I have. It's his first iteration, so it's probably not the best, but it's okay. His blog is excellent. He writes about this stuff all the time, and he's got a free course. Well, he did last time I checked, but he's got a free course on Udemy, so I'll make sure this goes up and you can copy this down. But this guy, if you come across him in your searches, he's a really good source of this process. He started about 5 startups himself. He's done an awful lot of writing about it, and he lectures at Stanford at the moment, which is the home of the Google boys and that sort of stuff. So he's pretty switched on. I like him a lot. I like a lot what he's got to say. And he's into this lean startup movement, which is that affordable loss or risk management, if you like. Instead of selling the house like I did and putting it all on a venture that I knew nothing about, these days it's a much more measured, much more sensible approach to starting businesses. The customer development process is different to our business planning in a lot of ways, or you know, the traditional business plan. It includes the customer. We need to go straight to the customer, like Damien's been doing, bringing those chocolates in a form that he's, you know, doing some form of market research, if you like, or getting some market intelligence. And if he sees the peppermint one sitting there, he thinks, oh, well, there you go. There's some learning to be done by there. So it includes the customer in the development. It's not just us sitting at home talking to our friends, developing our business model. It's actually getting out with the customers. It's dealing with unpredictability because you just don't know. When this client was asking me the other day, but can't you help us? I said, whatever I tell you is worth nothing compared to what your customers are going to tell you. 10 of your customers are going to tell you 100 times more, give you 100 times more value than I'll ever give you. I can make some predictions about how I think it'll work, but that's nothing compared to actually going and talking to them. So it deals with the unpredictability because you just don't know what the customers are going to come up with. This process builds failure in. That's why I said very early days in terms of your thinking, you can't be thinking of failure as something to avoid. Edison said, he hasn't failed. He's just found 10,000 ways that don't work. Mm-hmm. He's discovered something that doesn't work. For him, it was a discovery. Oh, that doesn't work. Tick. He didn't say, oh, I failed. He just said that's something that doesn't work. So, in a way, we've got to do that. We've got to incorporate failure into our planning. Iterations and pivots I talked about. It is a dynamic process. In other words, that business model, when you come up with a new model, you stack it on top and then stack it on top. You might have a business model that's actually got that thick in terms of the way in which you've changed it. And it involves scientific testing. I want metrics. That's what I said to them. How many people liked it, this product that was going to be doing? How many people paid that price? How many people, when you saw them, thought that it was good value? You actually keep numbers. You keep numbers by that. So it's scientific in the sense that it's not, I think this will be successful. You actually can talk about numbers, and I'll talk about that in a minute. And this preserves cash. This process stops you committing all of your money to find out if the idea is good or not, or to find out how to make the idea work. You don't have to commit all your funds to this. We can do it in a very cheap way. And the internet and your personal branding is two important ingredients in this whole process. And so it minimises risks and in that affordable loss area. And as you beat in those steps, as you understand each step, you can then move into the next one. And to a large extent, we're moving out of that step one because we've done the creating existence, we've done the business modelling, we've done the personal branding or whatever it was, and now we're ready to go into that testing phase. So it's about turning your vision, your thoughts into a business model. We need to engage customers, and we need to build for the few. And this is sometimes a hard one to understand. Your first launch of your business is actually not a launch of your business at all. It's what they use on the internet when they say a beta. I think I've got that right, beta or beta. So they're actually saying this is not a real business, it's just in beta form. In other words, or beta form it might be. We're putting it out there, don't hold us to it, we're just in that sort of test phase. When it's done and when we've figured out what we're doing, then we'll launch proper. And in a way, we've got to do the same thing. We've got to build for the early people that want to be part of what we want to do. These people have already been spending money trying to solve their problem, and you've come along with a solution that's going to help them. So these are people that are ready to sign up. They're actually not checking out the product before they sign up because they believe what you believe. Remember I said way back, it's the why. You convince these people of the why you're doing it, and they will sign up. Now, they're your early evangelists. Your product should be developed for them, not for, ultimately, remember Horizon 1. Later on, you'll fully develop your product in Horizon 3. But right now, we just want to develop a product good enough to attract those early evangelists. And that's what it's called, the minimum viable product. So you don't try and build your product with all the bells and whistles before you launch. You build your product for those early evangelists who will accept a minimal solution to their problem as long as you're selling them on the vision of this is where we want to go. We actually want to build this coffee shop right up to being some sort of, testing international blends or something. But right now we're just doing this. And so they buy into that. They buy into the story, knowing that they're buying into something that's long-term. And that's the minimum viable product. If you don't launch with that, you're going to spend a fortune on developing product development, and you're never going to have enough money to make all the other things work. And anyway, you're probably going to build something that the customers don't want anyway. So this whole process of customer discovery and customer development is about this proof of concept, which is what we're talking about today. And you need to be updating that model all the time. as you should have that model front and center, and that's why we'll try and find a couple that are in a digital form so that we can be playing with them and changing them as often as we need. So typical 4-phase testing, because you're wanting to test the problem as much as the solution. You want to test that you've got the right problem. Sometimes people say that they've got a problem, but that's actually not the problem. There's something else. There's an underlying problem that someone's got. And that's the one that we're really trying to solve. So we've got to think about, are we solving the right problem? Is your solution the right one? There can be other solutions. And so you've got to be able to find these things out in this testing. Do you think there's enough people that care? So you get 7 people, but you think to yourself, but is there a viable market here? Is there enough people? Can you look ahead and say, yes, I know if I got 7 out of that many, if I interpret that against the whole of the population I'm trying to reach, that's going to build me a business that I can really do. And is the solution worth the price? Remember, look for that glass of water in the desert. Look for that person that's looking at your product or your solution with those sort of eyes. We do one in the personal branding one that you guys get, and we start to talk about that, and you should see the people that just about tear us apart. They say, because they've been trying to get into LinkedIn, they don't know how it works. They've been trying to get onto Google Plus, have no understanding what it is. They've tried to do a Twitter account and don't understand it. And when we say, oh, we run a workshop on all that, they just say, sign me up. These people are desperate because they're desperate to get some sort of online reputation and haven't got a clue how to do it. They're mostly 50-year-olds. That's why we go after that market. And they're desperate, and they can't learn it. They're stuck in that no man's land. Have never been able to learn it. So we sort of say, well, you're in the desert. We've got a glass of water for you. And of course, can you make profit from it? But I think we look at that a little bit later. That's why we're going to do finances towards the end of the course. We're going to look at profit and loss, cash flow, and these sort of things. Because you get to that sort of down the track. First of all, I want to see customers crawling through the desert trying to get you a glass of water. That's the ones I want to find first. So design your test. You simply say, what is it you want to learn? Do I want to learn, will people pay this price? Do I want to learn that older customers are more what these people want? Am I going to try and learn whether this product could be delivered via the internet as opposed to face-to-face? What is it that you're going to learn? What's the simplest, and put not only simplest, what's the cheapest past test file thing that I can do? Some people that have got physical products, I say, well, look, there must be a markets that you could just go down and sell. Some of them are just as simple as bring along a whole lot of cupcakes. If cupcakes is your thing, bring them to work and walk the floors and see what people buy. Just see the way they go about it, see the look on their eyes. Tell them that you plan to sell them for $6 each, and watch what they say. That's a really simple test, and it's not going to cost you much. Everyone's going to love you because you've given them away, but the market research you get from that is sometimes enough. But of course, and a lot of guys I say, just go to the markets. Just go to the markets, hire the store for the weekend, put it out there, see what happens. It's a pretty simple pass-fail test. And then how do you design that test? Your goal in doing that test is not collect data on pass and fail, but to get insights. In fact, as you're talking, you're actually not looking at anything but their eyes. And I used to do this all the time in my cafes. I would always, even though we had 10 cafes, I always spent lunchtime on the counter. And because I was in charge of pricing and that, I would often put prices up, and I'd watch what people did when they came to the counter. Mm-hmm. And I'd watch what their reaction was. Were they sitting there? How much did you say? $15.80. $15.80. Are you sure? $15.80. Yeah, $15.80. Or were they just going? I'd say $15.80, and they'd slap a $20, and they'd keep talking. Change. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Because I'd think, I can get more margins here. Because if people were just nonchalant about paying for my products, and most of my customers were doing that, I'm thinking I'm too cheap. And I often used to say, and we'll get to this in pricing, if 10% of my customers don't complain about my price, then I'm obviously too cheap. If you're not getting complaints about your price, Darcy, you're in trouble. Because if people aren't saying, what? If 1 in 10 are not saying that, then you're far too cheap. Because there is 1 in 10 people in society that will complain even if you said it's for free. They'd say, what? It's for free, isn't it on Wednesday? Not free on Wednesday? What's wrong with you? You know. So there's a percentage of people that will do that. And so if you're not getting that, if you're not getting that complaint from a price-sensitive person, you actually think about putting your prices up. And when you get 1 in 10, you go, beauty, I'm priced about right. You know, instead of saying, oh my God, 1 in 10 customers complained, I better drop my price. For me, that was a pointer that I was about right. You know? So there's some online testing. That's why I want you to get into this website, because there's actually some interesting sites like Kickoff Labs, LaunchRock, Ubounce. I'm hoping these are still going. They were going last semester. I haven't checked them this semester. But basically, you go and just develop a one-page story about what you're going to do, and see what you can attract. See what people. You know, you have a register interest. You can do that. I think it's probably good to actually just build what we're going to do as a basic website, which we're going to do in Weebly. Just build a basic website and put on there your value proposition. In other words, what you're going to do to benefit customers. What benefits you're going to do, a call to action, even if that call to action is simply click here, give us your email address and we'll send you a free brochure on what we're going to do. Or a short survey, you can put a little wonderful Survey Monkey. Anyone come across that?
Yeah.
Yep. Survey Monkey, you put a little Survey Monkey thing there and say, we're just looking for feedback. And often what you get out of that is, of course, you get their email address, isn't it? And you can get to measure conversion rates. You put in Google Analytics behind your Weebly, which I'll show you how to do, probably get that done tonight. And you can measure the views to conversions. We had 10,000 people viewed. How many people clicked the button to want to know more? And that's what I say, you start to measure that conversion rate. And you're probably looking, you know, it's good for every 10,000 views, you know, if you got between 1% and 3%, you're probably about the most. 3% is the top, 1% is probably the bottom, but that's the sort of rate you're looking at. So we can go and check those out, see if they're still going. And the other ones, we'll just continue to build a basic Weebly website that we're going to run as a test site. And we're going to encourage people to say, look, this is what we're going to do. Click here, you know, you could be doing the Christmas ones on it, and just say, click here, do a short survey, leave us your email address, and we'll get back to you with all the specials that are available in November, or when you're thinking about it at Christmas. And, you know, you're getting that proof of concept. And then you come to me and you say, hey, I ran this website and I've got, you know, 10,000 views and there's 1,000 people that actually want to do this thing with my product. I'll go find your financier. You know, because you sound like you've got a proof of concept that needs to be funded, you know. As far as face-to-face, they talk about 50. You want to talk to at least 50 customers. Remember that? And you want to get the customers to talk. You've got to find that reaction. If you could do all that, that would solve my problem. These are the sorts of things you wanted to get. And I say there to be one of them. You want to be, you are not providing the service as a distant person. You actually are providing a solution that almost you would love yourself. You know, if you could build a business to provide solutions for the thing that you would love yourself, then you're on the right track. It's not a bad way to go. And then you will attract people around that sort of measure. Couple of things. A lot of us build first, ask questions later. It doesn't work. You know, that was the traditional business plan model. We can't develop this idea in a vacuum. And a lot of you are a bit sensitive about sharing your idea. And I've already told you, if your idea can be knocked off by someone, it's not your opportunity. Maybe it was your idea, but it wasn't your opportunity. Your opportunity should be so uniquely you. You should be so uniquely qualified to do that thing that even if you told everyone on the planet, they still couldn't do it like you're going to do it. And they couldn't reach the market that you're going to reach, you know. Like, there's a big difference between idea and opportunity, and it's the opportunity that works for you, not the idea. So get yourself an idea that you're uniquely qualified to do, and then start sharing it. Don't be afraid to share it. At some point, you're going to have to tell people. At some point, the world's going to know about what you're going to do. And if you can be knocked off so easily, I would rather know about that before I've spent any money on it than to find out after I launch. I told the world about it and I got knocked off by everyone and I'm out of business. I don't want you to go out of business after you launch. I want you to go out of business before you launch, if it's not your idea. The whole proof of concept process is about finding your niche. You need to find that storyboard. You need to come to me and say, Peter, I found the niche. Here's the photo of them. You know, I want you to get to that place because honestly, once you get to that niche, once you understand the specifics of the people that you're satisfying, everything else falls into place. Fishing, Phil takes me fishing every now and again. I try to avoid it, but he gets me into it. And I just want to get a line with a sinker and some bait on it and throw it in, and I don't catch nothing. So he sets me up with specific lines, specific things, specific bait, and that's all we catch. But at least we catch them. So you go fishing for everything, you get nothing. You go fishing for one thing in the same space, and that's all you get, flathead, or you go and get whatever he gets. You know, he's a pretty good fisherman. You need to budget for it. You know, when you're planning, your budget's about, you know, I've got to build this business. Where's the part that says, and here's the money we're going to spend on proof of concept? Really, really important that you're thinking about the money you're going to spend on this. And these are the key metrics. When you're talking about proof of concept, people want to know, how many users have you got? And that could be, if you like, how many people have liked, how many people have said they're interested on your website. What's the growth rate in users? You got 20 people last month, and how many did you get this month? 40. So it's growing at 100%, and next month, 80. So what's your growth rate in users? And then what's your conversion rate? Of 10,000 people that viewed your website, what percentage of them clicked your button and said, I want more information? If you're talking 3%, you're about the mark. If you're talking 1%, it's pretty low, but still acceptable, because new ideas often only attract a 1% conversion. And then how many, please, how many have given you their contact information? In other words, their email. How many have you given that? Remember those capital that we were talking about, resources? Customer lists of email addresses of people that said they want to be part of this. Wow, that's valuable. That's a unique resource. That's something that you bring to the idea that makes it very valuable. And the minimum viable product really means a minimum set of product attributes that can just barely satisfy the early adopters. So forget about the idea, I'm not going to launch until I've got this perfect thing. Think about doing a launch at a minimum viable level. Remember, we're wanting the customer to be part of this development process. And if you go in with the bells and whistles, you're going to be sadly mistaken, because customers are going to say, see those 7 things you do? Well, I'm not interested in them. I actually only want to do these things here. So we want to launch with the minimal, and we add features and we add things as they're required. So look, even if you're going to do a specialty cafe doing, you know, fancy things, where's the weekend workshop that you're running as a sort of a education thing first, just to see how many people turn up, see what it is that they like. So before you open your cafe, let's start running some seminars. Let's start doing some discussion boards online about stuff. How many people are engaging? What are they saying? And build a landing page. A landing page is using one of those sites that I talked about before, or you can actually build a landing page in Weebly. Finally, this is when we bring in all of that work you've done on personal branding. This is the time to bring in all of those people that are following you on Quora or Twitter or Facebook or whatever. One of my clients all the time, one of my students said, I've been on Instagram, I have 11,000 followers on Instagram. So I said, you must be posting nude photos, eh? He said, oh, there's 1 or 2. But I just said, that's amazing. What an amazing resource to leverage. I said, are you leveraging it? Are you connecting? Oh, no, I'm just posting stuff up there. But you can leverage that. Having built that sort of a following, you can then create a testing market for your ideas. So this is where you bring in the brand. This is where your leverage of your awareness and getting a reaction and connecting comes into it. That once we've got this proof of concept starting to happen, why don't we start connecting some of our ideas of our website? Why not connect them and advertise it to our people and see what they think? They're already warm leads. They're already people that said they want to follow you. All right, well, this is what I'm doing. Please go and check my website. Tell us what you think. Complete the short survey if you like. So a couple of big questions that we need to ask, and there you go over there. So what's your biggest pain in relation to? So when we're doing some of this, you know, when we're developing this product, I mean, that would be a wonderful question to ask of those guys that buy your Christmas tree. It'd be great to actually really understand what pain it is. Why is it that they're doing it? Why don't they do it themselves? And, you know, you need to ask those questions, because in asking those questions, you start to define what your value proposition is. And I'm sure they're all going to say it's the hassle. It's the hassle, mate. We just don't want the hassle. We know that you're twice as expensive as us doing it yourself, but we just don't want the hassle, you know? I don't want my staff at Christmas time to be out there decorating trees. I want them head down, tail up, doing some work for me. If you could wave a magic wand, what would you change? These are some things you could do, and the hurt that you're getting. How does that not having that solution hurt you? Does it hurt you in time, lost business, frustration? Do you lose status? Because this is all the sort of questions we need to ask in that proof of concept. So, we'll have a break.
You need a breather. That was a big spiel.
Well, I'm only going to get one shot at you today, so I was going to give it to you. What we're going to do now, after we've had a break, is I'm going to get your business plans out, and we're going to get you to explain your business plans, and we're going to pull them apart a bit. In other words, we're going to pull them apart, and maybe it's not time to go yet. Pull them apart and just sort of look at how we could improve them. Yeah, and you guys have got, as part of your group activity tonight, has got to write down the feedback from the team. So right now, there's some coffee, tea, and Bonox down the end. There's some lovely chocolates.
On YouTube.
There's some lovely chocolate.